Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video I'm going to be talking about what I think are the biggest positives in 2023 that we have seen from Kabam. Kind of the biggest W's, biggest wins where they did think everything for most part right. And we're going to start off with the web store. I think that addition of web store has been extremely valuable to everybody, obviously, who does spend in the game. So this is kind of like a selective point. It did not and does not affect everybody. Well, it kind of does if you are actually getting the free, weekly and daily Valiant crystals from there. But overall, web store did one incredibly important point where it let you even out the actual price of what you're purchasing, because if you are buying things in-game, you are subject to way the Apple and Google, alter their prices based on the country, based on the region that you are. But if you are purchasing in the web store, you're effectively paying the price in USD, and that's it at that point. Like a good example for me is Allfather's Odin costs £99 for me in the game, which would be like $115, $120. If I buy the Odin's Vault on the website, not only I get slightly more units, I also end up, paying like £82 for it. So it is significantly cheaper, and that always has been one of those things that didn't quite feel right in this game, that you are getting significantly worse deal just, because of the tax laws and whatever pricing Apple and Google has there. So that is a massive thing for people who do spend and, get some offers now and then for sure. And it does seem to be growing. And obviously the free Valiant daily crystals, the free weekly legendary crystals, those are awesome addition as well. And I think it was a good thing ultimately. I am super happy also to see what they did in the last set of sales, where you couldn't basically effectively double up on everything, where they put a combined limit of 4 in between, store and in the game, and you kind of had to choose where you want to buy these things. So ultimately, I will say that this is a good thing that we have the web store, and Kabam has, done this well. Moving on to what I also think has been one of the strong points from Kabam in the 2023, and that is trying out new things. Typically, the game kind of was much more stale, but in 2023, we could see a noticeable increase in more out there events. Like we had the Incursions monthly event quest, where I think the first time they kind of failed, but I still like the fact that they changed up the side event for the month. And the second time, they did much better. It means they went out, they tried something new. It didn't necessarily work out great, but they tried it again and improved it, and then it did. And it felt more interesting. It was something fresh. We have these, new Super Alliance seasons where you work together for things as an alliance to get the rewards. We had the Legends Celebration quest for the first time ever, even though we had these Legends celebrations went, for several years now. We have different and unique acquisitions of 7-star champions. I think the nameless whole thing, Kabam did nearly perfectly for most part. Get in the Battlegrounds, do these things. None of them required monetary spend, which is extremely reassuring. And it felt exciting. Now, again, with most of these things, unfortunately, somewhere along the way, Kabam failed or made them more disappointing than they should be. Like with the Nameless event, without doubt, seeing the Nameless Guillotines kit was extremely disappointing. It felt lazy. It felt like a massive, massive letdown after like a very, very great thought and event. And that is a problem where they can't quite follow it all through. But ultimately, I'm still happy they did it. It is another thing that, we can keep an eye out for. Hopefully the next champions are better, of course. And, or at least, I'm not wanting these champions to be OP. I just don't want them to feel this lazy, because it really did feel lazy. They don't need to be amazing, insane champions. But just for crying out loud, give them some actual abilities. So, Nameless Guillotine within a few months will not be much more than a profile picture. But whatever. I still think, however, it's a great thing that they have added it. It added excitement. It added these, things that we need to keep an eye out for, things to strive for. A lot of people got encouraged to do particular quests or, Necropolis or play Battlegrounds harder than they normally would. And that's a definition of, positive reinforcement, positive encouragement to kind of like lure people in there. There's nothing devastating if you didn't. Maybe you acquired the 6-star piece instead. Maybe you're skipping this thing altogether. That's on you. You're ultimately just missing out on these champions. And still, I do think... apologize for that. I do think it's a great thing what they have done here with it. And in general, the game, it does feel like this year Kabam is not as afraid to step out of the norms and, shake things up. And, bring some new things to the game. I hope they carry on with that. I hope we see new, more unique, interesting things that we have not seen. Because for several years, again, we kind of had our yearly stuff. Comes back, we expect it, and it feels a bit flat. I do think that variety additions to the game with the Nameless Champions, with the loyalty 7-star crystals, with the incursion 7-star crystals, all of those are very, very positive additions. Next up, what I think is one of the biggest Kabam wins of the year is the addition of DLL to their team. You can call this as you will, but I think it is undeniable that DLL is very good at what he does, to a point where just the fact that he's designing a new champion, it already generates excitement. He has designed 3 of the 5 best champions of the year. All 4 of his champions are in the top 10. I think, obviously he has smaller track pool, smaller, sample size. But at the moment, statistically speaking, he would be the most successful champion designer. No doubt. Photon, absolute menace on defense, very usable offensively. We have Absman, a champion that, single-handedly elevates general player base's skill with the light intercept and is also extremely versatile. Similar with Photon, to be honest. I do think that the existence of Photon and Kabam not changing will ultimately improve the ability of summoners to fight, period. And that will translate other fights. Because Photon is such a defensive menace that you need to be in a perfect control of the fight when tackling it, unless you have like Mantis or something, that, eventually most people will learn how to fight Photon. And the community at large will be better off for it. And then obviously we have Kate, that's absolutely popping everywhere. Such a beautiful, great design. And who else we have? We have Photon, we have Kate, we have Absman, and Kushala as well. Now, I'll still think Kushala is probably the weaker of the 4 champions, but not by much. And Kushala is growing on me more and more and more. And in this meta, she's again one of the Autobahn champions. Super happy that I have her 7-star. So DLL released 4 champions in 2023, and every single one of them is pretty much not only a really high quality champion in terms of their max capabilities, but most of them also make the player base better. And in order to get to the OP things in these champion kits, for the most part, you do need to know exactly what you're doing. There is a skill requirement to them. Like with Kushala, you need to land your intercepts and keep your spells or auras active. And then, with Absman, again, you need the light intercepts. You need to weave in those heavy attacks for that extra crit rating, for the max damage and stuff like that. Similar with Kate, you need the perfect release. You need to be able to shift through the arrows in some of the fights if you need to, if the fight requires it. So pretty much all of those champions are, not only performing exceedingly well, but they are ultimately, working for the better of the community. And that is, like, again, a very stark contrast on some of the other OP champions that we have in the game, where it's just, grab a champion, hit the opponent, doesn't matter if you get hit, and, you carry on. These champions are, like, much more finicky, but for most part in a pleasant sense, in a rewarding sense, when you do everything great with them. So yeah, big shout out DLL. I do think that Kabam hit a jackpot by hiring him. Made a great choice, and I hope that he performs amazing going forward as well. The second biggest W that I'm gonna give to 2023 is gonna be Battlegrounds. Now, we obviously had Battlegrounds start in 2022, but the actual season, the beta ended in 2023, beginning of 2023, I believe, or the first beta seasons. And realistically, this is the first year when we, have Battlegrounds as part of this game. And they are just the top game mode at the moment. As soon as Battlegrounds go off for a week, the game feels dead. It is quite hard to comprehend how we played this game for so long without Battlegrounds. Battlegrounds have changed the way we look at champions completely. Many champions that we would never think about ranking now are pretty much must-haves. And I do think they make players better. I do think it's much more, by far the most engaging game mode in general. And that's a massive win. Now, obviously, not everything is great with Battlegrounds, and ironically speaking, I do think that Battlegrounds at the moment are in one of the worst shapes it has been since the launch, if we're discounting the cheaters. The cheater situation and the bug situation upon the release obviously was quite horrendous and horrific, but the game mode itself was so fresh, it felt new, the rewards seemed much more worthwhile, and right now, Battlegrounds are kind of stepping back to the point where they are more frustrating, and that's because of the AI. AI is, not being enjoyable at all, and that's also because of the several of the more recent metas. They seem, again, extremely, extremely frustrating. Some of the trends in Battlegrounds in regards to the metas with the offensive nodes, I don't think is going in the right direction. Last month of Battlegrounds, last season, was absolutely disgustingly annoying with that all extra power gain, with completely crippling AI. And on top of it all, just the rewards do not really seem particularly great at the moment, which is kind of worrisome because Battlegrounds still have objectively one of the best rewards in the game, but now all of the recurring team game modes feel like they have outdated rewards again. Kabam is not update with the game economy by any means, because obviously Necropolis changed that, then Bunker 20 is going to push that further. We're going to get 8.4, and even Valiant Daily Crystals. Like, if Battleground Store is some of the best source of Tier 6 Basic and Tier 3 Alpha, then you legitimately get more from Valiant Dailies in a week than you can max out in these stores. And that's worrisome. We do not have Valiant stores in IQ and Battlegrounds and stuff like that. And that, immediately makes it feel less worth it. And all of the issues in Battlegrounds would be kind of like easier to tolerate, or more people would be inclined to push through them if the rewards are better. And they're not quite up there at the moment. So in between the rewards becoming less shiny or enticing, and in between the AI being significantly worse, and in between the metas not being particularly pleasant, I don't think Battlegrounds are in a great place right now. But ultimately, still, the existence of them, the inclusion of them, and Kabam's continuous adjustments of Battlegrounds, I would say still qualifies as one of the biggest wins. Again, if the game mode was managed better, if it had better metas, which, by the way, I don't like 2 metas at this point. It feels too long. 2 weeks for a single meta does feel too long. Just FYI, just throwing it in there. But ultimately, what I'm going to say is that if Battlegrounds were managed better and AI was better, then I think that would be by far the biggest win of the year. it's still great. It's still a massive win. It's just not anywhere as good as it could be, which is a shame in a sense. But at the very least, Battlegrounds didn't have the relevance of Incursions, because Incursions was the new big game mode, and then within 2 weeks nobody cared about Incursions, or within 2 months nobody cared about Incursions because the rewards completely sucked and it was absolutely random and so on and so forth. So yeah, love Battlegrounds, still one of the biggest wins of the year. And the final point, the biggest win of the year, I think most people will join me when I'm going to tell you this, that it is, in fact, Necropolis. The Necropolis was about as good of an event release as we could have hoped from Kabam. I think they did a great job generating the hype for it. I think they did a great job with the reward selection for Necropolis by adding the 6 and 7 star maestros as unique champions, by making this the place where the new power level got unlocked with the rank 3s, and still having some of the best rewards possible in the game, by providing the mastery point in the rewards, making sure that that guillotine piece is in there, then kind of like ensuring the longevity of these rewards in a sense, because again, there is the unique champion, there is the mastery point. The rewards also are basically the best rewards of anything anywhere in the game. So they generated plenty of hype. They did a great selection of rewards for Necropolis. I do think they did great by encouraging the community to get in there with the Road to the Crypt event, which is like a massive thing. It's also kind of funny thing that, haha, you guys are suck. You guys suck. You guys are dying a lot. Or when somebody, hardly dies and does a path, then, hardly helping you slacker, I think Road to the Crypt event was a great, great, great addition to this thing to bring community together and generate more interest in the event. I think the power level has gone down, so it's not as kind of like Everest content. If Abyss and Labyrinth of Legends are up there, then Necropolis is not quite as difficult or taxing on the players, which again helped to get more people interested in. A lot of people who didn't necessarily think that they will be doing Necropolis so fast or ever, because of the reward selections, because of the Road to the Crypt event, because of the lowered overall difficulty, jumped in there. The final boss is, much more tolerable. It's still challenging, but obviously it's not nowhere near as stupid as Abyss final boss or Maestro upon its release. So it's slightly easier, which again is not necessarily something that I personally prefer, but I think it's definitely good for community, getting more people in this type of content. Than giving out Baron Zemo on the Cyber Weekend sales. All that stuff came together for the best event launch that we have had, as far as I can remember. And surprisingly, pretty much no bugs in Necropolis. The only thing that was bugged was the Grandmaster, the final boss. But even that got addressed relatively quickly, and wasn't completely unpassable bug. You could still kind of find through it. So yeah, I want to give huge props to all the people who worked on Necropolis, starting from the people who managed the socials for it and managed the reveals and stuff like that, to the people who designed it, to the people who decided on the rewards and its place in the game economy in general. I think again, I'm going to say it again. I think it was the best single event launch that I can remember. Biggest win of the 2023. Hopefully, we're going to get many more to come. Hopefully, Kabam is going to learn from their mistakes, which they actually did, by the way, from Abyss. Now, obviously, there are things that in Necropolis that, we don't like the die now button is still in there, the damage cap is still in there, and even worse than in Abyss, technically. But ultimately, there are a lot of lessons that they learned from Abyss, with not locking the map, with making it less confusing, and yeah, absolutely love that. So, it is time for me to head out to my New Year's festivities. So, let me know what you guys think, if I missed anything, and I'll see you guys soon. Bye-bye. Hello there guys, and welcome back to the channel. So we have all the information about the